Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to remind those healthcare executives out there that are from small and rural healthcare organizations that Capstone provides complimentary consultations. As you may know, we help small and rural healthcare organizations to be the provider and employer of choice to keep care local and margins strong. Go to capstoneleadership.net and you can fill out the contact form there or actually self schedule a day and time that works for you. We'd love to partner with you in executing a winning strategy. Those few exceptional standout people. Sprinkling a few of those throughout your organization is not going to turn your organization into an organization that's known for consistently delivering on a high standard of safe and satisfying care. It can't be just a few people. It has to be organization wide. And that means it has to be standard dependent, not person dependent. And what I mean by that is the organization has to embrace, in total, the entire organization has to embrace a very high standard.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzlaff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Hey there, it is Sue here with you for another episode of Culture Change RX. And this is one of those episodes where I'm alone in the studio today. We call these Culture Bytes. And today's Culture Byte is focused on exceptional service or service excellence. So when a healthcare organization has it in their sights to truly be the employer and provider of choice, when it comes to being a provider of choice, that really means creating an organization where you can deliver on an exceptional patient experience, which is safe and satisfying each and every patient, wherever they're being served in your organization, whether it's in a clinic or outpatient setting, whether it's in the emergency department or inpatient or surgery department. So wherever it is in your organization, that patients, when they receive care there, they can really count on receiving exceptional service and a great quality experience. And today I want to focus on that exceptional service excellence. So while we consider the patient experience to be both safe and satisfying, right? So we don't want it just to be nice and kind and friendly. We also want it to be safe. So we want it to be safe, high quality care and satisfying. And the combination of that creates this provider of choice designation, right? It really takes both, being both safe, high quality care, as well as being satisfying. And so today I really wanted to focus on the satisfying part, right? The service excellence part. But some of what I'm going to talk about also applies to the safety and quality of care part as well. So first, I want to start by talking about something outside of healthcare. So many of us, as we go about our daily lives, we're going to encounter other service businesses, like a hotel, like a restaurant, like a retail store. So we're going to encounter service in other types of settings outside of healthcare as well. And sometimes it's hard for us to consider ourselves in the service industry. But we are, right? We are people taking care of people. We're not manufacturing something. We are providing service. And that service happens to be healthcare. And while that's very scientific and very specialized, it is a form of serving people. And so just like hospitality in retail and in hotel and in restaurant environments, the expectation or the norm that humans have when they enter a service experience is very similar, whether they're encountering that in the healthcare setting or in the retail or hospitality setting of a hotel or a restaurant. So let's start by thinking about a hospitality or service excellence environment such as a hotel. I was just away this past weekend at a place on Mackinac Island here in Michigan. The place is called the Grand Hotel, and some of you may have experienced the Grand Hotel for yourself, but it is quite grand. It is quite exceptional. And you see that all across the organization, whether that's the person greeting you at one of the doors, whether that's the driver of the horse drawn carriages, whether that's people handling your luggage or the people checking you in at the front desk. And definitely one of the most grandest experiences is actually in their main dining room. Actually, all of their dining rooms, they have more than one restaurant, but their main dining room, it's just a marvel to watch the service excellence being delivered to each and every guest, me included. And this is an organization that has 100+ year old history of delivering this level of an experience to their guests. So dating back many decades, this level of service is something that the Grand Hotel has been known for. So while the staff turnover, while the leaders turn over, even while the owners of the hotel turn over, this is something that they are able to deliver on to their guests time and time again. So you've maybe been to other hotels or other restaurants where it's a very few people, staff, that stand out as exceptional, right? So if you happen to get exceptional service, it might have been just the luck of the draw that you happen to get one of their standout or exceptional staff members that were serving you on that specific occasion, right? So, in many organizations, service, hospitality organizations, hotels, restaurants, retail, and the like, is that they may have a few exceptional people that deliver that type of an exceptional experience that would surprise and delight and exceed the expectation of the customer. But it is not something that is widespread, right? That the entire organization, that every person you encounter, that you can depend on and or expect that same level of standout service. So in those situations in a service business, it's really person dependent on whether or not the customer gets a great experience, right? It's staff dependent, whoever that person happens to be. And if they're at that higher end of ability to serve customers on any given day, week, month, and maybe they're kind of driven like that and they're wired like that, that they deliver on that each and every time as they come and show up for work each day, then the customers that they serve will get that great experience. But if you happen to get one of the other staff where maybe that isn't their level of service, that isn't how they approach their work each and every day to provide that level of service consistently to customers, then the business is overall isn't known for giving that level of service. You can't expect it each and every time. So again, it's person dependent. It's not organizationally consistent. So how does a place like the Grand Hotel, right, deliver so consistently, so exceptionally year after year for decades? And to truly be known for it, right? So it's not just a few people. It's not person dependent. It's an organization wide standard that they're known for. And that makes them a place of choice, right? Because that reputation for delivering so consistently that high level of service is something that people now can count on. And we've said it before, I'm sure more than once on the podcast, that when an experience is great, not just good, but great, people talk about it, they recommend to others, and they have repeat business. for that. And I am a repeat customer of the Grand Hotel, and I can expect that exceptional standard in the room cleanliness and the service of their rooms, as well as the food and the quality of the food and the service experience throughout the whole hotel. It is something you can count on. So if there was going to ever be a service industry business that people should be able to count on for high quality, safe, and satisfying service and care, it should be healthcare, right? I just might be a little biased. It's where my career has been spent for the most part, but I did start in the service industry when I was a youngster as a waitress and then a bartender. So I do know what it's like to serve in other aspects of hospitality. But when we talk about delivering consistently an exceptional, safe, and satisfying patient experience, I can't emphasize enough how important that is for our communities where our healthcare organizations are serving, right? That we should be known for that in our community. We should be counted on for that in our community. So, what has our work now for well over a decade, working with dozens of healthcare organizations, taking them from below average or average to top ranking, award winning, even number one in the state? How does that happen, right? How does service excellence rise and then be sustained at that level? Well, what I've just already mentioned is that it can't necessarily be person dependent. It does depend on people, but it can't be just person dependent on one or two great people or a few standout people, right? Those few exceptional standout people. Sprinkling a few of those throughout your organization is not going to turn your organization in to an organization that's known for consistently delivering on a high standard of safe and satisfying care. It can't be just a few people. It has to be organization wide. And that means it has to be standard dependent, not person dependent. And what I mean by that is the organization has to embrace, in total, the entire organization has to embrace a very high standard. We call that set and bring standards alive. And those standards have to be high. So it is a joint, united effort that an organization sets and achieves high standards. Setting and achieving high standards is one of the 9 core leadership practices that's part of our recommended Capstone leadership bundle. So 9 core leadership practice, one of which is setting and achieving standards. You've probably heard me say it on the podcast before in other contexts that we highly recommend employee-driven efforts. We call this doing it with them, not to them. So really engaging together with our workforce, giving that deference to expertise. So it's a joint effort between leadership and employees to set and achieve high standards. So when we're working in partnership with a healthcare organization, there's work to be done, solutions to be put in the hands of leaders that helps us to be able to set and achieve high standards. But then also one of the other systems or structures that's set up is the employee-driven teams. And each of those teams have a role. One of the purposes of each of the teams is to help the organization set and achieve high standards. So the employee experience team, populated primarily by employees, part of their purpose would be to set and achieve high standards for workplace excellence. So how we treat each other at work, our behaviors and our performance in our work. What are our high standards for that? And how do we unite around that and keep those standards top of mind, keep those in the hearts and mind of our people so that they're alive and well in our workplace? And then the patient experience team is also charged with the employee-driven efforts to set and achieve those high standards for a safe and satisfying patient experience. And so while leaders have a role, these employee-driven teams have a role as well. And at the local level, at each department level, taking a brief pause in this episode to make an announcement about upcoming events being held by Capstone Leadership Solutions. Our signature event in its 14th year, the 2-day Capstone Leadership Summit. It is for all healthcare leaders. It is our core curriculum of 9 core leadership practices that have been used to great results by thousands of healthcare leaders all across the country. This isn't theory, this is practical, doable tactics that are game changers for your team and your results. You can go to our website, capstoneleadership.net, and on the resource page, there is a tab for all of our upcoming events. Pick one, show up, and be a better leader day one after attending. Leaders and their employees there are engaged together for their specific departments, their specific functions in the organization to always be improving, always be striving to meet the organization's behavior and performance standards for a great workplace and also safe and satisfying care. So it is a multifaceted effort. It is not just a few people. It is not a few little tips and tricks. It is an organization-wide, all-in effort to set and achieve high standards that delivers consistently across an entire organization, big or small, so that each and every customer, or in the case of healthcare, each and every patient can count on receiving exceptional services in the organization's each and every encounter. So, another thing that's at play here in an organization that wants to deliver consistent, safe, and satisfying care is that when we have a large workforce, and large might mean 80 people in this ambulatory surgery center, or 1,500 people in the Soul Community Provider Hospital, whichever size organization that you're working in, and you think about all the different people that work there and all the different roles that they have. Some of them are new, some of them have been there a long time, some of them are clinical, some of those are non-clinical, some of them are per diem, some of them are full-time. Some of them are day shift, some of them are night shift, right? So we've got this huge variation in our workforce as far as defining the makeup of our entire workforce. But when I'm talking about variation, I want to talk specifically about 3 main areas of focus: behavior, performance, and contributions. So no matter whether they're new or tenured staff, or no matter whether they're clinical or non-clinical, when we just look at each person in the organization as a staff member that's part of that organization, that each and every person, no matter their role, no matter all those other things that make them different, when we talk about their behavior, their performance, and their contribution, there can be a wide variation in how each individual behaves, performs, or contributes. So let me just talk about a nursing team. Maybe let's just talk about the emergency room nursing staff. So that's a subgroup of the entire workforce in a community hospital, let's say. And if we were to take all of those emergency room nurses and we were to give them each a number between 1 and 100 as to how they behave in accordance with our high standards for how we behave in our workplace, and those high standards, again, hopefully set by an employee-driven team and embraced by the whole organization. If those are our high standards, and 100 means that consistently, every situation, every time, every day this nurse shows up for work in the emergency department, she is going to behave in accordance with those high standards for how we behave at our community hospital. And she'd get 100, right? And then maybe somebody gets a 40, right? And that means that less than half the time they behave in accordance with those organizational standards for how we treat each other, how we treat patients, how we treat family members, how we treat staff in other departments, etc. So less than half the time they're behaving in accordance with those standards. So there's variation, right? From maybe the lowest, hopefully the lowest isn't any lower than 40, but let's say the lowest to the highest, right? Same thing with performance, how we perform our job tasks. So as a nurse and, doing our work according to the nursing process in the emergency department, our protocols, our processes for delivering care, assessment, intervention, all of that. So how we perform our job tasks. And again, if you give them a number from 1 to 100 to their ability to perform those in a safe, high quality way each time in accordance with the high standard, they'd get 100, right? But let's say it's not 100, right? Let's just say it's even 70. So 30% of the time, maybe we miss a step, maybe we miss a piece in the process, maybe we skip over a step or whatever in performing something to its highest level of safety and quality. So we have variation there. And then we can have variation in contributions. So let's take each of our staff members again and give them a number between 1 and 100, 100 being the highest, of how they contribute to the team, the department, the service, the quality, etc., getting better. So beyond our day-to-day job description and beyond our performance of our job task, beyond the behavior of how we go about behaving while we perform those job tasks, beyond that, how we contribute day to day to the department, to the service, to the quality, to the team getting better. So maybe we're involved in a project. Maybe we're supporting a change. Maybe we're part of a team that's working on a goal in our department. So contribute. Maybe we're on an organization-wide team where we're actually part of the employee experience or patient experience. And we're actually working on teams improving things outside of the department. So we could give people a number for that as well. And of course, if you have an employee on the emergency department staff, a nurse that's behaving at 100, performing at 100, contributing at 100, you have a rock star, obviously, and that is an exceptional standout person. And we can't expect that every person, every time, every day to hit that 100 level every single day. But there are people that are kind of wired like that, right? And we know who they are. And standout organizations do have standout people. I'm not saying that they don't. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be like that. But what I am saying is there is this variation, right? From 1 to 100 and how people behave, 1 to 100 and how they perform, 1 to 100 in how they contribute. And in those exceptional standout provider of choice, hotels of choice, restaurants of choice, stores of choice, business of choice, schools of choice, churches of choice, when there is a choice, that standout choice, people prefer, people pick it over others, they recommend it to others, they talk about it positively to others. What we see in organizations like that is that there is less variation, right? So instead of being a range of 40 to 100 in behavior, maybe there's a range of 70 to 100. When it comes to job task performance, instead of 60 to 100, we see 80 to 100. And when we talk about contributions, instead of seeing 30 to 100, we see 75 to 100, right? So there's always going to be variation, but what you want in an organization that's striving to be the very best, to be the employee of choice, to be the provider of choice, is that we want to see an organization where there is less variation. So that lowest number isn't as low and there's more people. We call it high and tight, right? That there's that variation, but it's still very high. And there's a short range from maybe 70 to 100 versus 40 to 100. So the range is shorter and it's at that higher end of excellence. So that variation is there, but there's less variation and there's less lows. And so that is when we talk about setting and achieving high standards, you have to set, what does that 100 look like? You have to define that as an organization. And that's a unified effort between staff and leaders to jointly agree on what that high standard is for how people behave, perform, and contribute. And then the real work starts, right? achieving those high standards and moving everyone up to wherever they are today in their behavior, their performance, and contributions, and always moving them up, always moving them up. So in our work with our partner organizations, which are small and rural healthcare organizations, this is what's going on behind the scenes when we're working with them on the strategies and the standards and the solutions and the systems that move them from good to great, great to even greater, is moving it from being the random person dependent, exceptional, standout people that are carrying the full weight of creating the employer or provider of choice, which they can't. They can't do it on their own, and really making it a standard dependent, organization wide commitment to being the very best, to decreasing that variation. And if everyone is always moving up in how they behave, perform, and contribute, if each individual is always moving up, and that's the expectation, that growth mindset that no matter where you are, if you're a 99, you can get to 100. If you're an 80, you can get to 81, right? That when we have that kind of mindset as an organization, that each person is always going up, and then collectively we're all going up always. And eventually those high standards that we set, we have to set them even higher. And then we have to set them even higher. I love that some of our work with organizations have been more than a decade long, and we've watched them move through that process, through that initial setting the high standards for behavior and performance and contributions in their workplace, and then realizing that, years later, they've got to raise that bar because, again, that variation, they've moved everybody up. And that's a special skill set of leaders, and that's a special skill set of employee-driven teams and organizations to always be hiring and then elevating every individual in the organization to be striving to achieve those high standards. So now, if there is any staff behaving, performing, or contributing at those lower levels, that as an organization, we know what to do about that. That it's not just tolerated, that it's not just expected, that truly what is expected is that high end of variation, right? So you can imagine that there is no pixie dust that we can sprinkle to make this happen, that this truly is about creating a standard dependent, culture dependent, employee and leader dependent organization where we set and achieve high standards and where we decrease the variation for how people behave, perform, and contribute, and that variation is at that highest level. And that's what I saw at the Grand Hotel, right? I saw that it wasn't about a few exceptional standout people. It was about an entire team, each individual part of that team, driven by a high standard of service excellence, that each individual on that team behaved, performed, and contributed at the highest level to the reputation that they have as an exceptional grand hotel. And then when it comes to something as serious and important as healthcare, I think it's even important, right? That people can count on it. It could be for your hip replacement. It could be to have your baby. It could be like my grandson getting his tonsils out recently, right? We want to be able to count on it. We don't want it to be the luck of the staff member that we happen to get. It can't depend on a few exceptional standout people that we may never encounter in that short ambulatory surgery stay or that clinic visit or that 3-day length of stay when grandpa had pneumonia, right? How do we create organizations that truly can be counted on by their community each and every encounter, each and every patient, each and every time? This is challenging, but very purposeful work. And if your organization is needing help to set and achieve high standards, I invite you to reach out to us for complimentary consultation to learn more about how this approach is implemented in entire organizations. We have a 2-phase process. We have a 4-system approach. We have a formula. And we are delighted to partner with healthcare organizations that want to adopt this approach. And one important aspect of that is to set and achieve high standards so that organizations can truly be on the pathway to being the employer and provider of choice for their community. To reach out to us, you can go to our website, capstoneleadership.net. There is a contact us page, and you can either send us a note there and we can connect, or you could actually self-schedule a call with us. We'll be back with you again next week for another episode of Culture Change RX. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.